everyone, my name is Ashley Beyer. I am a sales engineer here at Decisions, and today I wanted to walk you through the CSV and Excel handling. Today we're going to go through a few different categories. The first one we're going to go ahead and do is create, then we're going to go through manipulating that data, and lastly we're going to go ahead and transform that data. Once we get started inside Decisions, which I will take you through here in just a moment inside the studio, we'll actually see that we have an entire folder that's going to go ahead and drop down to these different steps that we're going to be looking at today. And inside that folder, it'll be things for the Excel as well as the CSV documents. So starting up here first, we're actually going to go ahead and create a Excel or CSV document inside of Decisions. Now I'm going to go ahead and kind of flip back and forth between my PowerPoint slides here and Decision Studio itself. We today are going to be working out of version 8. Inside of here, we're going to go ahead and start by creating out our flow. When we go ahead and create our flow, make sure we go ahead and create a new one. And this one here is going to be to create that Excel document. So we're just going to go ahead and give it that name. And inside of here, we'll start with our blank canvas. We're going to scroll down in our toolbar here to data, expand out our Excel and CSV, and then we're going to go ahead and do create new Excel file. Pulling that over and of course connecting it to our start step. Over in our properties panel, we'll actually be able to go ahead and now name out our file name. So I'm going to go ahead and do a constant because this is what the file name is going to be. And we're just going to call it my Excel document. And the name of the sheet right here, we're going to go ahead and also do a constant, and we're just going to do workbook number 1. For this Excel document, we're also going to go ahead and set the values for the rows as well as the columns too. So looking over here inside of my toolbar, we're going to scroll down just a little bit more, and we're going to go ahead and see the set values in row. From here, we're able to connect those steps there again. And then over in our properties file, we're going to go ahead and get the input file. For this, we're going to go ahead and pick the create new Excel file right here. That's coming from our first step. We want to go ahead and also choose the file type. So this guy here, we can actually choose for it to either be the CSV file, an Excel file, or an Excel Sheets file. I'm going to go ahead and choose the Excel file. The worksheet number, I'm going to keep it a constant at 0 right here. For the row, we wanted to start at this top row. Now, this first row here, I'm actually setting the headers to the Excel document. So, at the top, you go ahead and actually have the description of what the below lines are going to be. We're going to go ahead and set that up here. So when I select from constant, I'm going to go ahead and leave this at 0. However, for the column, I'm also going to select from constant, and we're going to change this to number 1. Today, we're going to actually be working with accounts inside of Decisions. So for my new values over here, I'm going to switch to constant, and we're going to go ahead and do the name and email address. Lastly, I am going to go ahead and check off as constants to try to parse numbers, as well as fields right here. And this is fields with equal or formula. So this gets our headers going inside of our Excel file here. Next, I want to go ahead and set some of those values in the columns. So we actually have some data to work with later on. Again, connecting everything inside of our flow here, we're going to do something very similar here as we did for the rows. So as we set the columns here, we're going to go ahead and do that same file type. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that's the same as before. So Excel file right here, I'm just going to double check my work. They're the same. Worksheet number, again, we left that at 0. We're now going to go ahead and start on row 1 for this guy here. So constant is going to be row 1. Column is still going to be column 1 as well too. Now the values inside here, we're going to go ahead and build this out. I'm going to go ahead and give it the name for Albert, Anna, and we'll also do Anthony. Again, I'm going to go ahead and check these boxes below as well too, just that we have our data nice and cleaned up here. So this is our first column. which was going to be our names. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually copy this step here and then paste it because we're going to have something very similar for the next column as we start to fill out those email addresses. I'm going to again connect these guys here so that we've got the data flowing through, and it's going to go ahead and pick up that original one where we are creating that new Excel document. However, for my column right here, we're going to go ahead and change it to 2. And I'm going to go ahead and add on to these names for their email address here. And last one down here for Anthony, we're going to want to make it a Gmail as well too. My last step here before I'm able to go ahead and have a form that's going to go ahead and download this Excel document for us is we're going to go ahead and update this file with data. So we could go ahead and choose it from inside here, or you'll also notice over here at the bottom of this big long list, we have the update file with data right here too. Connecting all of our dots. And this file type here is going to go ahead and be the Excel document that we're choosing throughout these other steps. So if I come over to constant again, we're going to choose that Excel. And the input this time is going to go ahead and be this guy right here again. So we're going to go ahead and pick, and it's going to be that create new Excel. Now, the last thing I want to do is I actually want to check that this is working the way I want it to. So to do so for today, we're actually going to go ahead and see this on a form that we can go ahead and download. So I'm going to go ahead and show that form here. Take out that form. So I'm going to go ahead and do the download document. And then we're just going to go ahead and end out this process. So connecting our form to our done step here. And we do need to go ahead and set up the download of what Excel document should be coming through. So I'm going to go ahead and pick, and we're going to go ahead and pick that new Excel. So that finishes everything out as far as the workflow process, and we are ready to debug to see how this is functioning or working itself. I'm going to go ahead and start debugging here. We're going to see all that information processed through where I can actually download that file. Now, I'm going to go ahead and actually pull that file up once it's done downloading here. And when I do so, it's just loading here. Give it just a second. We'll actually see that the headers came here at the top for that name and email address. And then we started on the next row with the first column of those names. And then the second column is those email addresses. So inside decisions, we were actually able to go ahead and build out this Excel document. So this is going to be creating that Excel document. This could have easily been the CSV file as well too, if we had selected that at the beginning of the process here. And that's going to be on this first step right here. Next, we're going to go ahead and shift over now to the next part of the CSV and Excel handling. And this is going to be the manipulating portion. So we'll see for Excel documents as well as CSV documents, we usually have multiple different rows, and we need to extract information from those different rows. We'll also see that we've got some information separated by data, by columns, and commas itself there too. So we're going to start with that for each Excel or for each CSV. I'm going to go ahead and shift back over now into our studio, and we're going to go ahead and create a new flow again. So coming up here at the top and creating that flow, we're going to go ahead and now create a flow for each Excel. To start off here, we actually need to go ahead and create data. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and create the data for the file itself so that we can bring in the Excel document into our workflow process. So to do so, I'm going to go ahead and drag and drop that Excel or the create data for the Excel. And we're going to go ahead and show editor so we can go ahead and input that information. Make sure we go ahead and choose file data here so that we can actually go ahead and do the input as that constant. And for this guy here, that Excel document that we just created, we're going to go ahead and use here. So we're going to do the My Excel document and press done, save and then exit so we can return back out to our workflow process here. Now that we have a few different rows or columns inside that Excel document, we're going to go ahead and come over to our data folder again and open up the Excel and CSV file where we are able to choose the for each Excel or CSV row. Again, connecting all of our steps here. From here, we need to go ahead and start building out the information in our properties panel. We already have it set up for our Excel. This could easily be changed over to a CSV if we're working with that as well too. And then down here for that file input, we're going to go ahead and choose that file that we just created with our create data step. Next, we're going to go ahead and bring in a create account because we already have their name as well as their email address there. So I'm going to go ahead and just minimize our columns over here with data, and we're going to expand out our system, go down here to accounts, and then we're going to go ahead and do create account right here. This is going to go through for each row inside of this Excel document. We're going to go ahead and create an account for that user. And we can go ahead and have that done, come right back over so it starts on the next row here. I'm going to go ahead and just change this so I can actually see that it's a loop forming. Our done is as soon as we are done with all the different rows inside this Excel document, we want it to move on to the next stage or the next process. For us, we're actually going to go ahead and finish out that process. So I'm going to connect that done path to our end step here. Now we've got to go ahead and fill out the properties panel for our create account. So to do so, we're going to go ahead and choose our email addresses, which is actually going to go ahead and be field 2 inside of our Excel document. So we're going to come over to pick. We're going to go ahead and do current row. And then we're going to go ahead and choose field 2. Now we do need to go ahead and make sure that we're grabbing text value from here. So don't forget to go ahead and do the text value portion of this. I'm going to press done. And I am going to go ahead and make sure that everybody's password is constant and they can change as soon as they get logged in, just as admin here. And then everything should be nice and tidied up as far as going through that Excel document. We're going to go ahead and debug and watch it create all those different accounts here. We'll see that it actually processes a few different times. And what I can do is I can actually go over to my accounts with inside decisions and see that it made those different accounts. So if I come over to decisions, we're going to go ahead and look at security here, accounts, and we'll see that it has Anna right here, Albert, and Anthony that was just created for us. So it was able to go ahead and take in that file and then go ahead and shift through each row inside that file to go ahead and then create an account in the next step there. So that is manipulating the CSV and Excel documents. Again, it can be very interchangeable just depending on what type of document that you have. Lastly, we're going to go ahead and work on transforming. So this is where we're going to go ahead and take in a CSV to object mapping here and then configure it out. So again, coming back over into our studio, we are going to go ahead and create a flow. This is going to be our CSV to object mapping. And this time we are actually going to go ahead and use a CSV file itself, just so that we get both sides of the spectrum of Excel and CSV. Again, this time we need to go ahead and create that data so that we can bring in that CSV file. So I'm going to go ahead and pull in that create data step, connecting my start step to it here, and then show editor. This is going to be our CSV test file. Again, always make sure you're choosing file data here to bring in that object. I'm going to go ahead and choose that file inside of here, and we've got a test right here. Again, we're still going to be working with accounts. This just is going to have a few different names for us. Our next step here is that we are going to actually go ahead and bring in that CSV to object mapping. So coming down here to our data, Excel and CSV, and then you automatically see that right here, it's just a little bit different of an icon. So bringing that over, we're going to go ahead and connect that from the create data. And we're going to start changing the properties panel here. Number one is automatically set for Excel. We're going to change that to CSV this time. You'll actually go ahead and see that we have the output type here. We're going to go ahead and type in account, choosing account up here. It's going to go ahead and auto-populate our outputs now that we've got something for the output data. The file input, though, we're going to go ahead and pick that CSV test file. Now we actually want to build out this data here. So I'm going to come to show item mapping editor. And instead of selecting from flow for this guy, we're going to go ahead and build data. Click the pencil here since we're in V8, and we're going to go ahead and type in first name. We're going to go ahead and type in the last name so we can create this account, as well as their email address too. So this allows us to go ahead and have those 3 lines underneath as data that's built. But we do have to map it still. So we need to expand our input. And for the file that's coming through, our field 1 is going to go ahead and be our first name. So we're going to go ahead and take that text value and drag it over to our first name. I like to go ahead and keep everything nice and pretty. So I'm going to go ahead and condense that back and then expand field 2, select text value. That's going to be mapped over to my last name here. And then field 3, again, grab that text value. That is going to be my email address. So each one of these fields is actually what we can also call a column. So column 1 has everybody's first name, column 2 has everybody's last name, and column 3 has everybody's address. I'm going to press OK. And now that we have all that mapped out, now is when we're going to go ahead and bring in our for each step. So to do so, we're actually going to go ahead and collapse over in our toolbar here the Excel and CSV, as well as data, just so that we can find that step a little bit easier. If we come down to flow management and then iteration, we'll be able to go ahead and see our for each step right here. Connecting that object mapping to our for each step. And then the next thing we're going to do is, since we've got all this information, again, we're just going to create accounts. So off of this next step, we're going to come over to our integration this time. I'm going to come down to internal services, account service, and then I'm just going to go ahead and do let's go ahead and do add new account. I'm going to connect the next path to that add new account here. And then again, depending on after I create those accounts where I want this information to flow, my done path will flow to that next stage, or in our case, it will flow to our end step here. My done path off of the create new account is going to loop back over to my for each step so it continues on for the next person. I like to go ahead and again show that it is going to be a loop. We need to go ahead and set up the information for our new account. So starting here for our account, we're actually going to go ahead and build data again, and then choose out those different properties. So just like we did before, our first name, as well as our last name, and email address. Of course, we need to go ahead and map inside of here too. So I'm going to go ahead and select from flow. We are grabbing this from our item though. And we don't actually see item here. So let me actually back out. We're going to come to our for each step. It does look like we have a warning here. And inside of V8, we'll actually be able to see our warnings now over here on the menu bar on the left-hand side versus the bottom of our screen. So that's one of the differences. Coming to my for each step, we actually need to pick the collection. So we're going to go ahead and pick the outputs from that CSV to object mapping. And then we'll actually be able to have the outputs of item and item index. Come back over to our properties over here. Email address, we're able to pick item this time. Instead of item, scroll down and choose email address. And then we'll do the exact same thing for first name as well as last name. I do a little bit of a cheat here. I go ahead and select the beginning of this. And when I do select from flow here, I'll actually type it in and then type in first, and it gives me options down below. I'm going to choose first name here, and it's the exact same type of mapping as we were to go ahead and select it from that dropdown. So I'm going to do the same thing for this guy here. I'm just going to go ahead and type in the item, and then this time I'm going to type in last. It should populate last name for us here. For this step, we can also go ahead and choose for it to be a member of a certain group. I'm going to change this to constant so I can choose the list of groups that I have with inside of my Decision Studio. When I come to add here, I'm able to go ahead and pick from administrators, all users, maybe even different designers too. I'm going to go ahead and give this to the group of all users. And the password, again, we can go ahead and make this different, but I'm going to go ahead and make this admin today. Everything inside of my flow here is valid now, and we get to go ahead and test or debug this. So coming up to the debugger, I'm going to press debug, have it go ahead and process through. And again, this time, if I go back over to my Decision Studio and come to accounts, we should see some different names such as, we've got Dylan Fake right here. This is one of those guys. We should also see a name in here of Hank right here. And there should be just one other coming through. But you can actually see that it processed through all that different information from within inside of our CSV file here. Now, the very last thing I had was just kind of to wrap everything up here. So inside of Decisions, you can use Decisions itself to go ahead and start mapping and creating those different Excel or CSV files. Once we created our Excel file, we then took that Excel file and manipulated it inside of Decisions to go ahead and read off of each row. From those rows, we were able to take that information and process it to do the rest of our flow. In today's example, we did accounts. So we took the information from an Excel row and then made an account with inside Decisions. Lastly, we transformed some information. So we actually took a CSV file this time, and we mapped it into our CSV object mapping that then processed through a for each step and allowed us to go ahead and create accounts there as well too. Now, if you guys ever have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. We've got a few different emails below, and make sure if you need anything, you can reach out to myself as well. Again, my name is Ashley Beyer, and I am a sales engineer here at Decisions. Thank you so much.